Hi guys, welcome to Jez's Drones. Today I'd like to talk to you in a little bit more detail about the Civil Aviation Drone Code. As you well know, or I hope you know, that it is in 6 points, but they don't go into too much detail. So what I'd like to do is just to fill in the few gaps which are missing in those bullet points. The first one I'd like to cover is this one here, and always keep your drone in sight. What they mean by that is we have to fly line of sight. In other words, we have to be able to see our drone at all times. Like many people, I've got first person view, so I thought, I can see exactly where my drone is and where it's going because it's there on my monitor. They dismiss this and say, no, we have to be in visual contact with our drone so we can see if it's going to fly anything, or we can see if there's any obstacles in our way or in the area which might actually affect it. In fact, if you want to fly your drone just by using your first person view, that flight has to have approval from the Civil Aviation Authority. It doesn't mean that you can't use your first person view to line up a photograph or line up a video. I mean, that's what it's there for really. It's not there as a flying aid, it's there as a photographic aid. So always keep your drone in line of sight. The second one I'd like to cover is this one here. And that is, it's against the law to fly your drone at 400 feet or above 400 feet or 120 meters. That's fine, you know, I'm not worried about that at all. But then I started thinking, hold on, where is this 400 feet taken from? Is it taken from my home point? Or where? Because I quite often fly on top of hills or on top of cliffs just to get good photographs. So reading through the article involved, 94A I believe it is, they say that it's 400 feet or 120 meters from a fixed point. That fixed point is the Earth. So if you're on top of a hill and you put your drone up to 120 meters, 400 feet, and then fly out over the valley, your drone is deemed to be higher than 400 feet. Thankfully they've produced a diagram which explains it a little bit more, and it's this. I'll get it nice and close so you can see it. So yes, you're 400 feet at the top of the hill, but when you're down in the valley you also have to be 400 feet, and of course all points in between. So if you're on a cliff top, like I quite often am, photographing the sea as it crashes into the rocks below, I have to remember that 400 feet is taken from the sea, not from the cliff top. So it's a point well worth remembering. The next point I'd like to cover is this one here, and that is, keep the right distance from property and people. People and properties, it should be 150 feet or 50 meters, and crowds and built up areas 500 feet or 150 meters, and don't overfly. So now I'm thinking, okay, 50 meters from property, fine, 150 meters from crowds, but what is a crowd? What is a built up area? There's a few areas that needed clarifying. So I've had a look up to that, and that's Article 95, and it comes under the small unmanned surveillance aircraft. If you're below or within those distances, you're deemed to be under or using it as surveillance. So you can't go within 150 meters of a congested area, they say. Within 150 meters of an organised open air event of more than 1,000 people, or more than 1 or more than 50 meters of a vessel, vehicle or structure which is not under the control of you as a pilot. There is one exception with the people. If you take off and there's nobody around, but then when you come to land there's a few people come to have a nose, see what you're doing and have a chat, you have to be 30 meters away from them. Not as always easy as it says, and it is under landing, so you can take control of the situation. So 150 meters, 500 feet from large crowds, over 1,000 people, and 50 meters from structures and other people. A little bit clearer, I hope. The next one I'd like to cover is this one here, very important one, and it is stay well away from aircraft, airports and aerodromes or airfields. And it's against the law to fly your drone within 1 kilometre of an airport or an airfield boundary. And since it is against the law, I thought it would be really important to find out exactly what that means. So the airport boundary is the perimeter boundary. Every airport's got them, the big airports and aerodromes with like international flights and the heavy planes will have border fences, and it is 1 kilometre from that fence. The smaller airfields, which may have somebody on the end of a radio just keeping an eye on air traffic, their boundary is normally where their runways are. If you like, it's a big field, runway in the middle, be it grass or tarmac, and it's normally that boundary. But if you're near one of those, then it's worth asking where their boundary is, and also then take 1 kilometre away from there. So if in doubt, ask. There's also some great software out there, some great apps. I personally use Drone Assist. That puts an area around the airport where I shouldn't be flying. Very useful, worth looking up. There's only 2 more left, and they're quite self-explanatory, which is that one and that one. So the bottom one, you are responsible for your drone during each flight, and you are responsible for what that drone does. You can't blame anybody else but yourself. You are the pilot. And legal responsibility also lies with you as a pilot, and failure to fly responsibly could result in a criminal prosecution. And last but not least, this one, always fly your drone within the manufacturer's instructions. If you fly DJI like I do, then the app has no-fly zones already built into it, and just by following that app is following the manufacturer's instructions. If you don't fly DJI, therefore you've got to go through the manufacturer's instructions, make sure you're happy with them, and take it from there. That's all 6 bits. I hope you found this interesting and useful. If you'd like it, leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe. See you on my next video. Happy flying.